I think a lot of people on both sides of this trad wife debate are really missing the nuance of the situation. That it seems like either on one hand, you think being a traditional stay-at-home wife and mom is the best thing ever, or on the other side, it's absolutely horrible and a bad idea for everyone, maybe except for the kids. But there is definitely a middle ground, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. That I think a few things. Number one, if you want to be a traditional stay-at-home wife and mom, or you don't, whatever you want, you need to find the guy that's going to support your dreams and is going to support you pursuing what you feel like you were made to do. So if you are dating someone and they want you to be something that you're not, that's a problem. And you guys probably shouldn't be together because he's not supporting who you truly are and he doesn't love who you truly are. Outside of that, for people who are interested in the trad wife role, kids really only need you most of the time for the first 5 years. So after they're 5 and they go to school, obviously barring if you're planning on homeschooling, that's a different story. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, those first 5 years are the most crucial before they get into school. And that is when the vast majority of the brain develops in our childhood. That's when we really form the foundation for our emotional regulation and our cognitive development, our physical development, all of that. But beyond that, once they get into school, you have a lot of hours every day, Monday through Friday, where you can be working. And I think this is a middle ground that a lot of women who want to stay home with their kids when they're young, but don't want to be seen as a trad wife or feel nervous about not providing financially or not having a skill set themselves outside of their husband's ability to provide, you can go back to work after your kids go to school. And this might require that you be educated before you get married. It might require that you, as you're able, take some classes here and there, get educated, get qualified in some way or another in a skill set slowly but surely over time while your kids are young. Or you really, hit the books hard or start developing skills right after your kids start school. But there's definitely flexibility that you can develop yourself professionally and you can work, especially after your kids are in school. Beyond that, I think it's really important to note that you can't really plan a healthy marriage around the possibility of it ending. That a marriage is not like a business contract. The more you talk about contingencies and possibilities of a rupture in a relationship in a business, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's, called good planning, good risk assessment. But if you take that approach in a marriage, it really signals to each other that you're not totally committed, that you always have one foot out the back door. You always have a backup plan. And some people think that's good. However, from the perspective of a marriage therapist, the couples that have an escape plan are not the ones that work out. They're the ones that end up breaking up because from the start, they already thought there was a decent enough chance that they weren't going to work out, that they needed some sort of backup plan. And that's a really tough mindset to start a relationship out with that's supposed to last the rest of your life. Last, but maybe most important, is that having a balance of self-sufficiency and a healthy reliance on each other, that's a really good way to approach marriage. That you want to be able to do things for yourself. You don't want to have to rely on your spouse for everything. You want to bring good things to the marriage that your spouse doesn't bring themselves, because that's how complementarity works. You want to be stronger together than you were both separate. But that doesn't mean that relying on each other is a bad thing. You have to take a risk. Marriage is a risk, and however you go about that risk, however you go about trying to balance the self-sufficiency and the mutual reliance on each other, is totally up to you and your spouse. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get married, you have to take that risk and you have to be all in. Otherwise, it doesn't work out. And to some couples, that all in is having a trad wife. And to some couples, being all in is having 2 full-time working parents or some other combination of that. But you got to be all in. And the key here in what I just said is that there needs to be a mutual recognition that you each are bringing something super valuable and super unique to the marriage that wouldn't be there without the other person. And that is a really good way to approach marriage so that you're not risking being in a position where you're basically left out to dry if your spouse decides to leave or decides to, break those marital vows in some other way. That mutual reliance really is a good way to protect against that, while still also encouraging both of you to stay together